The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
A recording of today's webcast will be made available in the Business Credit Webcast Center following the conclusion of the session. Once again, welcome to the Top 25 Cities for Small Business webinar. Before we begin, please note that this webcast and all answers provided by the participants are meant solely for informational purposes and are not to be considered substitutes for legal or tax advice. Business loans and other federal lending programs are not guaranteed and are issued at the sole discretion of the lender in conjunction with SBA or other governmental agency guidelines as applicable. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of Business Credit, its affiliates, or partner companies featured in this webcast. We will begin by taking a look at our agenda, and then we will introduce our host and guest for this afternoon's presentation. The webcast will last approximately 45 minutes, and we will cover a number of important agenda points. We will hear from our special guests, Derek Tran, representative of the 45th District of California, Zoe Lofgren, representative of the 18th District of California, Frank Fiorilli, Vice President of Risk and Compliance at Paychex, and our moderator, Rohit Arora, CEO and co-founder of Business Credit. Now, I would like to welcome our moderator for today's webinar, Rohit Arora. Rohit is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Business Credit and is one of America's top experts in small business lending and fintech. In 2011, he was named New York City's top entrepreneur by Crain's New York Business, which named Business Credit among New York City's Fast 50 of 2014 and 2016. Rohit, the floor is yours.
So first of all, I would like to welcome Congressman Derek Tran, and since he is part of the Armed Services Committee as well as House Small Business Committee. So I think what is happening now in the economy overall, right, it has a lot of implications both on the geopolitical side as well as on the economic side. So I think from a timing perspective, we could have found a better, member from the Congress, and also he represents California, and especially the Southern California, where we are seeing a lot of impact, happening right now. So thanks for your time, and and I think the other thing very interesting with you is that you were in the armed forces for 8 years, and now you are a small business owner yourself and running an independent pharmacy. So I think that experience of day to day opportunities as well as struggles and frustrations of being a small business owner, it will be easy for you to relay that than a career politician or a career policymaker will do. So first of all, welcome, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rohit, and it's truly a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my first question would be that you are a small business owner and a first generation immigrant into the country, and especially areas like Los Angeles, which have a very large small business presence, especially immigrant driven. In our annual report that we do of top 25 cities, LA is on the ranked as 19th best city to be in small businesses, in spite of all the recent challenges that we have seen over the years. What are you seeing? What is happening in Orange County and other areas, especially with LA is such a big port, or the biggest port in the country, and with and everybody's expecting a massive drop in freight traffic coming in from China. And the reason I'm asking is that because we fund a lot of logistics and freight companies, and we are starting to see that there's a lot of worry right now in
Mm-hmm.
that part of the business, along with wholesalers who actually import a lot of stuff from China. We are seeing a significant drop in their import volumes, and everybody is trying to diversify their supply chains, but it's going to take a lot of time to happen. So in your experience, what is happening? I think you are in that region where in my view the impact could be quite significant.
Yeah, look, I recognize a few things. Like one, LA County, Orange County, California in general happens to be a very expensive place to one live, two to do business, absolutely. But because we are California, that's where everyone wants to be. It's a process where we have to recognize. California is not going anywhere, and the high cost of living that state is also not going to be going down. It's just everyone wants to move out there, everyone wants to live out there. The proximity to the ports and the trade corridors in Southern California, especially where I represent, is such an important part of the economy. I think one of the things that we're seeing as a big challenge that I'm hearing from a lot of businesses out in my district, and my business included, I own, like I said, a small pharmacy with my wife, is the uncertainty of what's going on with this administration. One thing that the market depends on is stability, is certainty, right? And even here in Congress, we cannot keep up with the uncertainty of the constantly changing tariff policy of this administration. It's very erratic. This off and on again policy has been very impactful to our economy. It's, in my opinion, driving us into a recession. This doesn't matter whether or not this administration intends on implementing the tariffs that they're announcing. Just the fact that there's just these up and downs of one day 100 something% tariffs, and then another day of maybe we'll reduce it 20, 30, 40%, is causing a lot of chaos. And the problem is when you have all this uncertainty, we become it's hard for businesses to make decisions. How do we contract? How do we decide in future investments when we don't know where that investment's going to take us because of the tariff policies? So I think it's very important for one, Congress to rein in some of the tariff powers, so that way we can start having more certainty and stability. That's very important. One of the goals that I have, being on the Small Business Committee, that's what I'm advocating for, is just really retracting some of the power that has been given to the president on the tariff powers. You know, I'll also talk a little bit about the job cuts that happens because of this presidency, this administration. We're seeing the highest total drop in the job market because of this last month, because of what Trump is doing. So that's a fear of mine. And at the end of the day, we in Congress can only get things done when we work together. And that's the best thing that can happen for our communities and our businesses out there. So it's my hope that the Republicans and the Democrats on both sides can start working together to implement policies that really make a difference for our businesses and our small businesses, especially in California.
Mm. And in terms of last week, a bipartisan bill was introduced in the Senate around increasing the SBA lending limits for manufacturing businesses. And as a member of small business committee, what are your views on that? Plus, also, how do we modernize SBA? Because one thing that we have seen over the years is that SBA has been a good program, but it's been behind I would say the whole technology cycle. Like the businesses have moved more and more digital during and after COVID. There has been a lot more stress on doing more cash flow based lending. While the challenges with SBA has been that it's still very like the SOPs have not been updated for last 30 years. It's still very paper intensive. It still takes 2-3 months for anybody to get an SBA loan even today. And while SBA
Yeah.
tried to do some reforms in working capital and all that, but I think without having the right guardrails, their non-performing loans just went up quite significantly. So
Yeah.
as a member, what steps you think Congress should be taking to address these issues and also make SBA more technology driven and less expensive?
Yeah, I think whenever you talk about the government, we're always a little bit behind the eight ball as far as being innovative and quick to accept technology, right? That's something that we can do better, especially in today's economy and today's environment, right? I want to talk about like overall pictures on what we can do to make SBA better, right? The expansion of targeted federal support, recognizing regional cost disparities. That's something that's very important, right? Especially in California, we need to look into that. Boosting access to flexible capital through programs like SBA 7A, and the community advantage loans. That's something that we can do to ensure that funds are actually reaching entrepreneurs in high cost, high barrier areas like LA, which I represent, Orange County, which I represent. These are important things. Small Business Committee needs to move on legislation that makes SBA Community Advantage Loan Program permanent. That gives more stability to the borrowers out there and people that are looking to start their own business. And we have to continue investing in the small business development centers. We're hearing a lot of news about that being cut. Women business centers, veteran business outreach centers. These are all things that have benefited our community, and the SBA needs to continue to support those types of programs. And it's my fear that within the next couple of years, even next few months, these type of programs are going to be cut by this administration. So those are my top focuses. And I know you mentioned some stuff about technology, and I'm all for it. Where we can make things less bureaucratic, where we can have quicker access to capital through the application process. Those are things that I want to be able to do. I want to support legislation where we can streamline the 7A loans with amounts under 500,000, because truly most businesses that start, that's where they're at. That's the sweet spot of what they're looking for capital. And if we can offer these types of loan without the administrative burden, it's just going to be able to increase access to capital so these businesses can thrive and start and thrive, right? Start their business and really build that business in their community.
So I think this takes me to my next question, which is like, what we have seen in our report, this top 25 cities, is that while Southern Californian businesses are seeing some strong revenue growth, part of it is also is because of higher inflation over last 2 3 years. So it has increased the revenue, but the personal credit scores of a lot of these business owners have dropped, more than in other parts of the country. So that is one thing, and then the other thing is that how, like even in SBA and everything else, how to adopt more of alternative data like cash flow data and everything else, because it's still pretty, while while business lending should be based on a lot more on the cash flow and the actual strength of the businesses, but still the credit score of business owners matter a lot, actually. And this is a little, like, if I see, from that aspect, this can impact the access to credit for small businesses, especially in Southern California going forward. So what's your view on this, like encouraging more alternative data, more cash flow data? And also, what could be the reason for this? Is this like because of higher cost of living, they're borrowing more on the personal credit and everything else, that's also impacting them, also?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of a lot of different things, and I can speak to this directly with my experience. Right, when we started our pharmacy, this is something that we used an SBA loan, my wife and I, and it wasn't an easy task. Right, that process alone was a nightmare to navigate, and we got to do better. The fact that we both had to have our own capital, our own collateral, just to support a loan that was like $400,000, I believe, at that time, it was really hard. Um,
Mm.
Very fortunate that both of us had our own careers. I in addition to having that pharmacy, I had my small law practice as a lawyer. So we were able to get our loan, but I can't even imagine for so many thousands, tens of thousands of other individuals and small businesses who are trying to get loans and how hard it is for them. And I believe that we Congress need to promote the use of alternative credit data to help remedy this disconnect. Because you see so many immigrant entrepreneurs, and let's be honest, a lot of entrepreneurs in my community, the Vietnamese community, the Hispanic community, Korean community, are small business owners, right?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
They're shut out of these traditional financing because of like thin credit histories or language barriers for that matter. Congress can modernize SBA lending through their underwriting criteria. There's just so many means of us to look at and how we can kind of address this problem. We can, for example, allow for the reviewing of the borrower's rent, their utility, their payment history towards and use that towards their credit worthiness, right? Instead of just looking at a credit check like the traditional method. You know, let's see what else. Congress can authorize some type of pilot program for lenders to use AI, perhaps, or non-traditional data sources to responsibly evaluate credit worthiness to high-performing but credit-thin businesses. We can look at how we can scale the SBA's microloan program, which is often the right fit for these new entrepreneurs. So the focus is on like a micro loan program is super important. Blockchain based financial systems has been like the next big wave and thing that people are talking about out there. So that's an expansion and looking into how we can really make blockchain and that type of untraditional financing stream available is ways that we can improve access to capital with alternatives to just the traditional credit worthiness of a borrower.
No, I think yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also that's a bigger issue among the immigrant community with all the extra barriers that they have, both in terms of language and understanding of the capital markets also, that how it works in this country, basically. Any last piece of advice, as both as a congressperson sitting on small business committee, as well as a small business owner, because as you rightly said, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and a lot of, I would say, the confidence among small business owners has dropped significantly over last month, in terms of, where we are going. So any kind of insights, like what they should be doing right now?
Yeah, I think for my family and for myself, what we look at is how can we ride this wave, like cycle of high costs, tariffs, uncertainty in the market, and it's really about making sure we thin out, the fat for the a better lack of a better word, at the business level, right? Our operating costs, wherever we can trim down, we are, because we're in for a tough ride. That's what my wife and I believe, and I think people need to start looking at like plan Bs and plan Cs and how they're going to be able to ride through a cycle where you're going to have issues with the supply chain. If you're a business that's heavily dependent on that, or heavily dependent on market certainty, which we don't have right now, you got to figure out what your next two plans are going to be, in the alternative to what you're doing now. I think that's always smart planning. Do that. That's what we're doing. Like anything in this world, and especially in business, is cyclical. We just got to ride through this. And the reminder is, this president's term, and the erratic nature of these tariffs are only, a little less than 4 years left in his term. So, you just got to bear down and ride through this tough time.
Okay, sounds like a good advice. So thanks for your time, and thanks for addressing our business owners, for this.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Take
Thank you.
care.
I would like to welcome Representative Zoe Lofgren, who represents the 18th District of California. She has been a long time US Congresswoman from the district, starting from 1995, which is very impressive. And congratulations on your, re-election so many times, I would say. And also, she represents one of the most economically developed, and also the one of the best economic engines in America, that covers Monterey, San Bernardino, Santa Clara, and San Jose. And right now she's a ranking member of the House Science, Space and Technology Committee, and also serves on the House Judiciary Committee. So if she's serving on so many committees, it means that she's very important and very senior. So thanks for your time. And and I would love to get your introduction from your side.
Well, thank you very much, Rohit, and it's a pleasure to be with you, especially to discuss the top 25 cities for small business report, a very significant report for our country.
Yeah. And I'm very pleased to say that we have been doing the top 25 city ranking for last 10 years now. And we have seen a lot of growth and a lot of challenges. Last 5-7 years have been extremely interesting times for small businesses in the country, with COVID coming in, and now with inflation, and now with the tariffs coming in. And we have actually seen one thing which is very interesting, that San Jose has been among the top 5 cities, starting from the inception. Now that clearly means that, something great is going on there, in spite of all the, bad news that we hear about California these days. And what we are seeing is that, this time, some of the new cities have come in, like Worcester in Massachusetts, and then Stamford in Connecticut. But still, California being the largest economy in the country, has been a great, I would say, powerhouse for small businesses also over the years. And I would just, my first question was be that what kind of policies in your area has kept you guys so competitive, in terms of, giving growth for small businesses, and also giving them opportunities to either raise more capital, or, have just more growth opportunities?
Well, Silicon Valley is the engine of growth in California, and I'd say in the United States. It's worth noting that with companies headquartered in Silicon Valley, They make up more than a quarter of the S&P 500's total market value. So that is really the basis for growth, but it's also useful to the small businesses. Some of the small businesses you've identified are technology companies, but the top small business industry in San Jose is accommodations and food services that are, of course, tied to the technology industry, but those are factors that are hard hit by rising costs, workforce challenges, global uncertainty. We want to make it easier for small businesses, not harder. And one of the priorities that I have is do something about the cost structure. I hear daily from small business owners, especially restaurants, cafes, hotels, about how credit card swipe fees are eating into already tight margins. Those fees, in some cases, they're higher than any other single element that a small business deals with, and they can make the difference between staying open or not being successful. Right now, Americans pay the highest swipe fees in the entire world, and that's why I've reintroduced the Credit Card Competition Act, which will provide much needed relief to small businesses and consumers by increasing competition, lowering costs, and making the system more fair for everyone. The Credit Card Competition Act would increase competition by requiring that the largest banks must allow a second network to process credit card payments. And it's estimated that if this bill becomes law, it would lower costs for small businesses, lead to better prices for consumers, and would save Californians over $2 billion a year. That's not small change. Now, you're right. We do have challenges in California, and we're trying to meet them. But we've just been named the fourth largest economy in the world. So we have our successes as well.
No, I agree. And my second question is a follow-up that as San Jose has been among the top 5 cities this year and consistently among top 5 in last 10 years. And now I think the other good news is that from a credit score perspective for small businesses is the second best, because a lot of small businesses borrow money on their personal credit or they personally guarantee it. So that impacts, small businesses a lot, your owners a lot, and especially in last few years with inflation also going up. Now with the advent of AI, with the more technology advancement, what do you think are the future opportunities for small business owners, especially in the Bay Area and also Silicon Valley being the epicenter of this new AI revolution coming in?
Right.
How do you think these businesses will get transformed, both in terms of cost play, efficiency play, and also opportunities play?
Well, it's important that we continue to support federal basic science research. There's been a bipartisan consensus for many decades that the federal government needs to fund the basic research, and that's research where you can't see a payoff, a commercial payoff, but if that research doesn't get done, we'll pay a price because the technology that it supports will never be developed. I'm very concerned at this point that the current administration is bringing really a buzzsaw to basic science research, both for the National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, Department of Energy, and the like. That, Idaho National Labs identified that 85% of our GDP growth is directly connected to science and technology. So this is a very poor move on the part of the administration. On the Science Committee, we're working hard on a bipartisan basis to support research and to pass bills that will keep us in the lead. And I think of the three things that work together, and that is quantum computing, AI, and fusion. And the country that succeeds in those three areas is going to own the future. And that prosperity will bring up everybody. All of the small businesses who aren't tech companies need that tech economy to be successful and lift up the whole region. I also want to mention that the problem I'm seeing and the concern I have with the current administration's posture on immigration. Many of the small businesses in San Jose are powered by immigrants, not just the workers, but also founders and owners. It's important that immigrants be valued, that they be provided an opportunity for legal status. And unfortunately, the current climate is very hostile to immigrants. A lot of people, it's worth pointing out that almost half of the Nobel Prize winners, the American Nobel Prize winners in the sciences, were Americans born someplace else. And right now, and the key for that is really smart people who want to become Americans come and go to American universities. They get their doctorates or their postdoctorates, and then they found companies or they invent things. Well, those students aren't coming here because of the hostile environment. The drop-off is immense. And then also, the number of universities who are not admitting doctoral candidates is growing because they can't see with the federal funding cuts, how are they going to pay for that research? So this is not a good picture for prosperity. I would like to note also that the ag industry is also part of my district with redistricting, and about half of the farm workers in the United States don't have their documents. But if they were to leave, it would be a catastrophe for the agricultural industry. We have had a bipartisan bill that I helped lead where we got the growers and the farm workers union together and they reached a compromise, and it was a bipartisan bill. It passed the House in 2019 with bipartisan support, but the Senate didn't act. So we passed it again in March of 2021, and again the Senate didn't act. And we're just about to reintroduce the bill, and we plan to be more aggressive with our Senate colleagues on both sides of the aisle because they need to act and to protect the ag part of our economy. It also modernizes the temporary visa program. So we need smart, humane, business-oriented immigration programs. We need, obviously, the asylum system broke down. There was chaos at the border. That is not acceptable, but that doesn't mean that we should turn our backs on the engine of our economy, which is a vibrant immigrant sector. So I'm hoping that we can do a number of things. One, get the credit card bill through, the competition bill, have support for science so innovation and technology growth continues, and be open to the entrepreneurs and the investors from other parts of the world who want to become Americans like us and who grow our economy. I want to thank Biz to Credit for elevating small business voices. What you're doing is very important.
And thanks for your time. And as a first generation immigrant into this country myself, I can relate to a lot of things you said, and also emphasis on science and technology, because I think AI and all the cutting edge stuff, we need more investments, in basic sciences and math skills, out here. And obviously with credit cards, I agree, because, I think there's so much of consolidation that has happened in the industry recently, that we need more competitive pricing and more choices for the businesses.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day. I've so enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, and thanks for your time.
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, just looks good. Rohit, Frank, Rohit, are you good? Can continue going? Frank?
Yes.
We'll
yes.
Okay, we'll start off. I'll go back off camera.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to welcome Frank Ferroli. He's VP of Risk at Paychecks. A great friend of ours. Personally and as a company. I'm very proud to say that Biz to Credit and Paychecks have been working for more than 12 to 13 years now. We are helping to get access to credit to small businesses. And during the COVID crisis, we worked jointly, Biz to Credit and Paychecks to deliver hundreds of millions of dollars of funding to the Paychecks, customers. We work and we keep working very closely on the ERTC financing programs also, and also now we are launching some new embedded finance, partnerships also. So the idea is that, it's been a great experience working with the largest, I would say, payroll company in the country catering to SMBs. And Frank's role overall in launching the Paychecks Promise program and other, programs, he has been a pioneer in the industry. And I'm very happy and thankful for, his time today.
Hey, Rhoda, if I could add on what you just said, yeah, it was a great partnership with you guys. One of the things we're most proud of was during that very bleak, dark time during COVID, and what we did with PPP and ERTC.
Yeah.
And, we just did a little study a while ago where just our role, Paycheck's role, is we think we saved like 300,000 jobs in that time frame. So for those who don't know, that's like that's the population of the city of Pittsburgh. So yeah, it was great working with you guys as well on that.
So I think one of the things that, since you guys have been so involved with the SMB business, and we have been also been involved, and we just saw, that Worcester in Massachusetts just got ranked as number one, on a list, and last year it was nowhere, kind of stuff. Obviously, the usual folks like, San Jose, and then, some of the other, bigger cities, we have seen it over the years, that they have done, consistently well. Based on your data, you reach out to so many small businesses, you have all the payroll data and everything. What are some of the trends you are starting to see, in this space? And obviously with the tariff wars and everything, I think it's still, nobody knows the impact of it, but but that's on the top of the mind for a lot of people and a lot of small businesses actually right now. So what do you like what trends you're seeing, like emergence of smaller cities, less expensive, centers of doing business, like I would love to get your opinion and your feedback about it.
Yeah, no, great. Again, it's great to be with you, and appreciate the invitation. Yeah, so for those who don't know, we put out, like you guys, it's been over a decade, we've been putting out our small business job index, which we feel like is one of the top barometers out there on gauging small businesses, just because of the reach that it has. For instance, and again, this is just sort of the mom and sorry about, somebody's mowing our lawn here at work right now. Of course, great timing. If you can hear that, I apologize, but yeah, right in front of my window. But anyways, yeah, so we've been putting out this index for like I said, over a decade now. And what it does is it gauges a couple things. One, it looks at not only sort of small business employment, but it also looks at wages as well too. And we cut it many different ways, like by state, region, and discipline. So yeah, what we're seeing, and by the way, we're kind of the first out the door. We just put ours out on Tuesday. It gets a lot of national publication. Our CEO is on CNBC every morning, and we distribute it all over to DC, over hundreds of people in DC as well too. But really, what we're kind of seeing is small businesses are resilient. It's amazing. We're not seeing any deterioration. In fact, this month it was up a little bit. It's like a barometer. We look at kind of 100. If it's over 100 means there's growth. If it's under 100, it means there's contraction. And it's been around that 100 line for a very, very long time now. So obviously during COVID it took a pretty big hit, but then came right back very, very strongly, almost like a hockey stick. And again, we attribute a lot of that to again sort of creativity in small businesses. They know how to manage things. They know how to do with less, and manage sort of the headwinds and some of the unknowns that are coming down the pike. And obviously right now there's a lot of those. It's interesting kind of time right now. Even though there's optimism, if you look at kind of the NFIB surveys, there's also very heavy sort of uncertainty and pessimism as well too at the same time. And I think a lot of that just happens to do with sort of the time we're in, and regarding sort of policy stuff and other things kind of going on. But just to give a kind of a high level, we've historically the South has always been very, very strong, and with sort of the Northeast and the West Coast not doing as well. But over the past year, there's been a little bit of a trend change where we've been really seeing some strength in the Midwest as well. So for instance, we only look at sort of the big top 20 metro areas, and just give you an idea that Minneapolis was number one this month. So now historically, Dallas has been very, very strong. They probably have the crown of being number one for a very long time. And then, by the way, a little bit of California has usually been sort of the lowest, whether it's LA or San Francisco or San Jose in the way we measure employment growth. So that's really what I'd say is kind of the big picture. And then if you look at compensation, which is the other factor that we look at on the wage front, the West, though, has been leading on wages. And then what will happen is our index is very, very sensitive. It can really kind of gauge things very timely. Like if you see, for instance, Tampa is, I think, number one this month, and we're seeing that some of the hurricane comeback is reflected in this sort of having to pay some higher wages in the small business environment. So that's probably why you see that number one this month.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's like a very good point, because my next question was around, the rising cost of payroll and also, the retention difficulties, because we are seeing two things happening. We are seeing a slowing economy. We got the GDP numbers this morning, which are not unexpected. But also at the same point of time, we are seeing higher payroll costs, actually, and also with this immigration, uncertainty about immigration, also, the shortage of people who can work, actually, so since you have such rich and granular data on payroll, what could be some strategies for business owners to really, do in this current environment where we have a slowdown in economy, we have higher payroll costs, and we also have, more difficulty than even 2 years back in trying to get new people to work, right now. So all three are happening.
Yeah, and again, at Paychex, one of the things that we're really proud of, we listen to the clients. We do a lot of outreach and really try to hear with what's going on, again, on kind of Main Street mom and pop shops, specifically for small businesses, right? Even though we also offer our services all the way up to very big enterprise companies as well, too. And we try to not only when we listen to them, we try to provide services and products. We want to make businesses succeed, and we feel like we almost partner with them, that we're like hand in hand with them. And like for instance, I'll give you some good examples of what you're talking about now. For a very long time, again, if you look at any of the national surveys, one of the biggest problems right with inflation was finding qualified people. And just recently we came out with a Paychex recruiting co-pilot, which is all AI driven, and it's very, very slick and sophisticated to try to again attract and find the right people, along with our Paychex flex perks services for it, and the employees that our clients engage with. So we're about trying to find solutions, and I agree with you. There is headwinds. The one thing that we always talk about, though, typically within small to medium-sized businesses, they're usually concentrated in the service sector, which doesn't have as much impact to the tariffs. They do have impact, but not as much as you would on sort of the manufacturing sector. So, again, it's you're hearing it. It's a tough time. I'd say right now what we're seeing, again, in our data, not seeing any signs of recession, but you're hearing that word freeze, right? I do think that is somewhat true, that businesses are in that sort of kind of wait and see until something happens, and they're kind of like in that hesitation mode and kind of wait to hire the next person or CapEx or any of those kinds of things to kind of grow. So hopefully we'll get some resolution here shortly, and then I think you will start seeing that in sort of the numbers.
No, and I think you pointed out very well that most of the small businesses are in the services sector, so they should not have a first-hand impact of tariffs, unlike manufacturing and some of the other high-tech industry like chip industry and everything. And we have seen that trend, because even in our this study of top 25 cities, we have seen that retail, construction, and healthcare have done very well across these top 25 cities. They have grown, faster than your normal stuff, and that's not unusual, especially the fourth one, accommodation and food services, because with people, so much of travel post-COVID and, travel spending and everything happened. So in your experience that, what are some of these industries are doing differently than others? One could be obviously more locally dependent, kind of stuff, but what other things they are doing better? And then what do you think the trend going forward? Because obviously some of these industries are very dependent on the overall economic sentiment, like retail and construction, especially. So in your experience, what are you seeing these trends? Are you guys seeing similar trends? One, and secondly, what could small business owners learn from some of these industries? Because as you rightly said, they're extremely resilient and they're very opportunistic. So, how can they learn and what they can learn?
Yeah. So again, I think here's where our data does sync with yours. Education and health services has been our top sector for small business growth for, I think it's like uh, maybe the 11th consecutive month. So they've been right at the top. And then just recently, we've also seen professional and business services jump up and be pretty strong as well too. Um, and then the one that we always watch very closely, because it is a pretty big portion of, small to medium-sized businesses, leisure and hospitality. And as you probably know, that is a very volatile sector. For instance, when COVID hit and you saw a lot of the impact of small businesses, a lot of it was really in the leisure and hospitality sector. So, and then, when things came back, that really came back the strongest and most volatile. So that one we always watch as a sort of a kind of a benchmark and what's going on. And then if you look at sort of, again, the other component of that is hourly earnings. For instance, we have seen overall, and I think we were one of the first ones to kind of report on this a long time ago. We are definitely seeing that come down, as well as sort of the average hour work week has been soft as well too. Although recently that seems like that's leveled off and topped off, and I think that kind of fits in with the whole mosaic of the employment sector now, with again businesses being frozen a little bit, maybe not doing layoffs or firings, but just kind of holding things and maybe reducing hours. And I guess that's sort of kind of hit it. What I would say from your question about recommendation is, again, to businesses to do whatever they can do to kind of hold the line until the clouds part, let's say, and it's more clear picture what is going to happen from a policy standpoint and everything else. So that is something we've seen as far as resiliency. And then the other one, is you and I have talked a lot about, is just sort of automation and AI. I think even small to medium-sized businesses can leverage that right now. We're seeing that and hearing that a lot. And I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for them to do that, to, again, kind of get through this time period.
No, and yeah, thanks for your insights and your time, because this webinar is actually, I see every year, there's a massive amount of pickup and a lot of, people use this data point, because I think one of the things we have seen over last, especially post-COVID, is there's a lot of migration within the country also among the businesses, and that has happened where, businesses are looking for lower cost, more impactful areas. And I think this is a very timely report in that sense, and also from a education perspective, because as you rightly said, things are freezing up right now, actually. So which is a little concerning. And I think May is going to be, in my view, a very critical month, because we'll know in the month of May where we are going, from here, actually.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and as you know, the tax bill is critical as well. That is a big one.
Absolutely.
Watching on right
Exactly.
now, and other stuff. So
yeah. And some of the indicators are pretty good, with like low oil prices. If geopolitical situation gets better, and if the tax bill happens, which it should, then I think those are all positive signs. Tariffs and some of the other things are the headwinds right now that people are still trying to get through. Having said that, I think it's like, from an overall perspective, I think the year started in a very optimistic manner. I think we're not there, but I'm hopeful that we should end the year much better than where we are right now in terms of sentiment and outlook. And that should be something that, I think last few years have been extremely volatile and unpredictable, from every aspect. COVID, a lot of inflation, then other things happened. So I think it's time that we try get back to a normal times, more normal times. And once we do that, I think with the advent of AI, as you rightly said, these small businesses, in my view, will become even more efficient and also can deliver better services, to their client base.
Yeah, and then the other one I just want to add again, I think the one that's maybe being underplayed or underestimated the most is the unwinding of regulation will really help too.
Oh yeah.
You haven't seen that yet, and when that happens, again, I do think you're going to see more green shoots. So I agree, we're optimistic as well.
Yeah, and we saw it even during Trump first administration, where first year and a half was rough, but then the impact of deregulation actually started really helping, the economy. So you're right, like that's going to also happen. That also happens with the lag, some lag, but I'm very hopeful that that is coming. And I think overall, once the tariff stuff and other geopolitical stuff settles in, then I think it could be a pretty good time for the economy for next 2-3 years, once it settles.
Great.
Thank you for your time and all the insights, because I think this will be very helpful for business owners as well as people who are looking to start a business. And again, thanks for your time and all the data insights.
Thanks you. Great. Appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So as I said, I would like to thank both the Congresswoman Lofgren and Frank Ferroli from Paychecks. I think it was a great insight from both of them, especially on the credit card bill that she's trying to bring, and also the emphasis on basic science research and AI. As I said, some of the things that I want to highlight here is that, Worcester in Massachusetts has become the #1 small business city. And that's very impressive because it was not even ranked in 2024. And I think the whole biotech industry that Boston is known for, especially that area in northern Massachusetts with all the universities and the tech hubs, the biotech industry over the last few years has done very well. Because we remember a company known as Moderna, which came out of COVID, was a great example of how biotech got us a vaccine for COVID so quick. And I think there has been a lot of big research dollars going on in the industry. We are seeing a lot of activity in that space right now, and we are also seeing that with increasing longevity and other things happening, the need and the I would say the impact of biotech industry is going to be pretty large, and Massachusetts, especially northern Massachusetts, is the hub of it. Like what Silicon Valley is for the tech industry. So we have seen the businesses having a positive impact with like higher average annual revenues, very strong credit scores, and also the longevity of these businesses has also increased quite a bit. So which is all great news. The one thing we have seen, which is interesting, is that the leading industries in our, this study have been, as we said, business services, retail, trade, construction, and followed by healthcare, and they have been pretty dominant across the U.S. markets. Part of it was pent-up demand, especially in construction, because a lot of stuff was not happening, and then last year we started seeing a drop in the interest rates, which led to pick up in the demand for new buildings, and also as more workers started to have coming back to the offices, and also for new homes, because there has been a huge backlog, for that. And I think the other good thing that we have seen is part of it is because of higher inflation also, but part of it is like, last year we had a pretty strong GDP growth rate of around 3%, which for a mature economy like US is a very strong number. And last year we saw that, the average annual revenue of small businesses across these top 25 states went up to $620,000. So this is an incremental increase from the last year, but we see this was a good number. Obviously, this year started very well, but today's data on GDP contraction of 0.3%. Obviously, second quarter will be better because a lot of imports into the economy got front loaded in March. But at the same point of time, it's going to be a challenging next quarter or two. That's what we are seeing. And at the same point of time, we will see a shift, in my view, towards more services-based industries And also businesses which are going to leverage AI better will be big winners next year, because they will see a lot of growth, they will see a lot of efficiency play, and they will also see that their cost structure will either be same or go down. So I think overall, it's like, if I have to say, it's like glass half full right now. In spite of all the short-term challenges that we are facing. And I think, as I said, this is our 10th year of bringing out the small business uh, ranking for the cities. We have found this to be a very useful study. We have also seen this actually this is almost has become a bellwether, where we have seen that, where the businesses are going and what sectors as well as what locations. So this is becoming even a better and a bigger report every year, and we see a lot more data now coming in, and as we grow in size, this is becoming even more important. Having said that, as I mentioned, that ongoing tariffs have created a lot of uncertainty in the economy. Recent conversations have indicated to me that a lot of banks are again freezing or have gone into a stall mode in terms of lending to small and mid-sized businesses, which is obviously not a great news. But I think two or three things are happening. One is March of private credit is increasing the overall access of capital for small and mid-sized businesses in the country. And the second thing is with the new SBA SOP, which just got released 2 days back. The Trump administration is also trying to make SBA lending more digital, less paper-driven, faster, and by restoring the underwriting standards, they are also trying to make it more healthy, because that's very important. If we have to maintain or grow the SBA lending in the country, we have to maintain the portfolio quality, because that's how the investors invest a lot of money in these loans. And I think the key thing also for a lot of businesses, as I said, these are challenging times, but also I think small businesses are extremely resilient. They have faced much more challenging times during COVID and post-COVID time with very high inflation. And I think things should look much better by the end of the year. So it's time to buckle up and double down, and as I said earlier, pay more attention to your cost, try to use more technology, leverage more of the new AI tools that are coming up, and also at the same point of time, be more aware about your surroundings, because there are a lot of new opportunities coming up. So as a small business owner, if you're more aware about that, you will actually gain a lot out of it. So, and as I've said repeatedly, cash flow is the bloodline for small businesses. So securing financing at the right time, right place, and even prior to when you need it is extremely important. And if we get into a recession, which may or may not happen, but it looks like a mild recession as of now. If it comes in, I think having access to credit and being ready for that is important. One good news that will come out of a recession is going to be lower interest rates, and a lot of business owners have got negatively impacted by high interest rates over the last 2-3 years. So that should come as a relief. Low gas prices, but obviously if there's a demand slowdown, that creates its own set of issues. So with this, I would like to thank everyone who has being on our webinar, and the people who have watched it now. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all attendees. Make sure you scan the QR code to look at the full report from today's webinar, and you can also locate resources mentioned in today's program on biztocredit.com. Give us a follow on social channels for more small business tips and resources. Thank you once again for joining us. The session will now conclude. A recording of today's webcast will be made available on our website under the Webinars tab. Your session will now disconnect automatically. Thank you.